Hi, my little conspiracy theorists. It's me, your dad, Knitted Anus. We're gonna go into the JFK stuff right now because after that, we are going to go through this entire book, and we are going to go. We're starting right here, baby. And then we're going the 60s, false opposition, RFK assassination, MLK assassination, frickin' George Wallace, what else? House Select Committee, the October surprise and Iran-Contra, the Inslaw scandal, Jesus Louises. We're going through the frickin' Clintons, we're going through the Bushis, we're going through frickin', dude, we're going through everything. Look at this. Ruby Ridge, frickin' Oklahoma City, ooh, Starbucks, the Clinton body count. Let's go. Gary Webb, Obamner. Let's do, the Franklin, remember? It says Franklin and Child S scandals. That means all the rest of the stuff that I was talking about. Dude, it's all freaking connected, boys. But yeah, so the JFK coup d'etat should piss you the fuck off and get you mad every second of every single day until we change this, because this started off the last 60 years of chaos that we are right now reaping what we sowed, right? We laid a bunch of little eggs and our chickens have come home to roost. All right? So, anyway, I took a bunch of clips from this amazing documentary that I can't believe I hadn't seen before called The Men Who Killed Kennedy. It's like a 9-part documentary from 1991. It has so much great footage, guys. Holy guacamole. It answers a bunch of questions and it'll make you ask a whole bunch more. But this is your guide to never again denying that Kennedy was killed by a fucking conspiracy by a bunch of fucking capitalist fucks. Okay, next. Real quick, let's just go over what the frick happened, right? Does everyone know what the frick happened on November 22nd, 1963? JFK was in Dallas. JFK was going through like a parade route and everyone was out there waving at him. And then he goes and takes this weird like hairpin turn, goes in front of this book depository building, and then while he's going down the road, the limo's going super slow, and bang, 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 a bunch of shots ring out and hit him. Well, the story from our government has been that it was always a lone assassin named Lee Harvey Oswald shooting from up high on a building called the Book Depository Building. But I think I'll show you some stuff that maybe that isn't the case. But just keep in mind, why would the government want to get rid of JFK, right? Here, let's watch the Zapruder real quick. Okay, this is what got us here, boys. So there's JFK, and blammo! This is the oldest footage in the world. Like, if they get mad about this, I don't know. But let's take a look one more time. Okay, so right now, JFK is coming down the road. The building that we're talking about, that supposedly Lee Harvey Oswald, is super high. It's the 6th floor. It's right here, coming from JFK's back rear position. And so the guy's shooting down at him at a moving target from like hundreds of feet away, right? And he picks off 3 shots apparently. And he freaking gets JFK. That's the story that the Warren Commission said, and they're sticking to it, right, guys? So let's start off with the motives. There were so many people who wanted to kill JFK. It's crazy. Organized crime. He was the first president who tried to do anything about organized crime, right? And also, remember, the organized crimesters were really pissed because Cuba had just recently, like a couple years before, kicked all of them out of their fun little Las Vegas, in the Caribbean. And so they're pissed about that, right? Then the CIA, Allen Dulles, wanted to do the Bay of Pigs right when JFK was inaugurated, and it was a failure because JFK wasn't willing to escalate it, to bring the military action and like bring on, throw a bunch of Marines at it, because he didn't want to risk American lives and he didn't want to spiral it out into a full-on war, because he had actually been to war. Unlike all these other cowards, none of them had gone to war. Alan Dulles was like in frickin' Sweden during World War II or something. Like, what a dork. Or Switzerland. Okay, so then the other big one that we found out recently is I-word, right? We all know Wally's told us all about the Ben Gurion letters with JFK, where JFK keeps saying, hey, you're going to have to disarm. You're going to have to disarm. I'm going to send inspectors. They're coming. And apparently Ben Gurion was so scared about JFK and the weapons that he said that he was terrified that the Marines were going to come storm Israel one day and take them away. And then JFK passed away, and they never talked about the secret nukes ever again. We've never talked about secret nukes. We won't even admit there are secret nukes. Okay, then we've already been through the oil, the steel spanking that he gave, right? Dude, he spanked those little steel babies. They said, we're going to raise prices on you, even though we said that we're not going to. And what did JFK say? He said, fine, I will send the fucking Justice Department to your door. I will send it to your mistresses' houses. I don't care, because I'm the president. I have no rules. I can do whatever I want. And I want the people to live good lives. I don't want any more war. And they said, but what about business? What about our profits? Then JFK also, now I need to start getting into this way more, but apparently the Federal Reserve, did you guys know this? The Federal Reserve is actually a business. It's a for-profit company apparently, and they control all the money. But anyway, because JFK's dad was like another criminal, I think JFK kind of knew that the Federal Reserve was another criminal corporation, and he was going to take it away from them. I think he was going to go back to the gold standard or something, but we can't be having that because we got to be able to print unlimited money whenever we want. That's what's his face? What's his stupid name? Dude, Jerome Powell. Blech. Okay, then the military. Again, JFK was going to be an anti-war president. He had been to war. He knew how horrific it was. He knew that when you're in war, most people die because their commanding officers are stupid, because they make dumb choices, and they do things just because they're told to without using their frickin' brain, right? So JFK was like, I'm going to go around here. Actually, I think I'm going to do world peace. And nobody liked that. Just kidding. It was so popular. Everyone loved it. Everyone frickin' wanted that. Everyone had so much hope. Everyone was so excited for the future. Even the leaders of other countries were excited. They loved JFK because you know what? He went around and he said, hey, all these people that you keep calling communists, they actually seem like patriots to me. They seem like they're standing up for their country. Anyway, he wanted to get rid of war, and you know whose job is going to be lost then? The militaries. Unfortunately, all of you war hawk, power-hungry assholes, you're going to be out of a job. And you're going to be out of a job soon, too. And then, lastly, dude, LBJ is a straight-up bitch. LBJ and what's her name? Lady Hawk? That should be her name. Lady Hawk. Blood Hawk. But LBJ was a straight-up loser. He was old. He was weird. He was lame. And he was only with JFK because JFK was so progressive that, the Democrats, they were scared that no one would vote for him because he has all these popular ideas that everyone wants. So we're going to have to put a freaking oil tycoon on your freaking ticket. But anyway, guess what, guys? 2 weeks before JFK died, he told one of his aides, actually, I'm going to tell this guy, LBJ, to freaking hit the road, Jack. This dude is stupid, and he farts all the time in the room. And his wife is weird. I think his wife is trying to convince him to go, kill me or something so he can have my job. That's what JFK said. He said, I'm getting rid of this sucker. This loser. This dude's going to get me not reelected because he's so lame. Yeah, so he did that, and he was going to announce it, and LBJ, he said, no, guys, I'll do all the war stuff you want. Just put me in, please. Please. Okay, next. Let us never forget the assassination of a sitting U.S. president was never properly investigated. Every step of the way, dude. Like, bro, there's a thing called the Katzenbach memo, which was like released 2 days or something after Lee Harvey Oswald died, and it's or 1 day after Lee Harvey Oswald died. The public must be satisfied that Oswald was the assassin, that he did not have Confederates who are still at large, and that the evidence was such that they would have been convicted at trial. That sure seems like Oswald didn't do it. He did have Confederates who are still at large. And that the evidence would not convict him. I'm just saying. Also, the Warren Commission members were filled with people who did not like JFK. Allen Dulles, the guy that JFK fired for screwing up the Bay of Pigs to try and get JFK into a war with Cuba, he said, "Get out of here." And Allen Dulles was like the main guy in the Warren Commission. There's no freaking way that he should have been involved in that. JFK got rid of him for being corrupt and for doing things without consulting JFK. JFK said, "I don't feel like I have control of my intelligence services." He told the president of France once, "Oh yeah, they could have tried to kill you because I don't have control over my intelligence services." He told another person, "I want the CIA to be shattered into a million pieces in the wind," or whatever. Whew. Okay, anyway, let's see what this guy has to say.
Put this thing together, and first of all would show that they could not have done the damage they did, the lethal damage they did, with only 3 bullets. If you come to this conclusion and you do it accurately by physical evidence, you throw the entire Warren Commission report out. The policemen working on the street are accustomed to solving murders, and they would go right ahead of it with it unless somebody stopped them. So somebody stopped them, there's your cover-up.
The FBI in Washington had at first given their full cooperation to the Dallas police. Their field agent in Dallas, in charge of the Oswald file prior to the assassination, was James Hosty. He was directed to help the police in their initial interrogation of Oswald. But within hours, these orders were changed.
I was approached by one of the senior agents from the counterintelligence and was told that there were now new orders, and I was not to talk to Oswald anymore, and I was not to cooperate with the police department in any manner concerning Oswald's background.
That's a weird thing for someone in the Justice Department to say. He said, "Hey, investigator, don't investigate." Okay.
I have since determined that those orders came directly from Assistant Director William Sullivan, who was in charge of the Foreign Counterintelligence Squad.
What?
He was also the person who had direct liaison with the National Security Council. The National Security Council is the President, the Vice President, the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of Defense. That's about as high as you can get.
Hosty's Washington superiors knew much more about Oswald than they were willing to divulge. Consequently, his surveillance of Oswald had also been based on incomplete information.
I was not aware of the fact that President Kennedy, through the CIA, was attempting to overthrow Castro, and that Fidel Castro had threatened President Kennedy. Had I known this, I would have immediately been concerned about Lee Oswald because we knew he was pro-Castro. Had I known this, then we could have put a whole different light on the situation.
Heck yeah. So that dude is obviously an FBI agent, so he's just saying that he didn't even hear this stuff about Cuba at all at the time, even though it's not real. It's not what really caused him to die, but that's what they were trying to do, essentially, was frame Oswald as a pro-Castro person who got mad at Kennedy for failing the Bay of Pigs. Like, it doesn't even make sense what they're doing, what they're saying, but essentially, Lee Harvey Oswald was not they're like, he's a communist, lone wolf, psychopath. And he was not a lone wolf. He was not a psychopath. He actually worked for the army for a long time. And yeah, so, okay, all of the books that I read about JFK, like, within people who research JFK and know anything about it, it is fact. It is solved. It's done. No one's even discussing it anymore. JFK was killed by a conspiracy. The government even admitted as much. They just didn't name who, you know? So no one's taken any of the blame. there's been no justice whatsoever from this, and this is just some of the evidence that is tainted. The presidential limo with JFK's brain and head all over it. As soon as they pulled him out and brought him into the Parkland Hospital, they washed it out with a garden hose. They apparently found a bullet. The magic bullet was found laying on a gurney outside in the hallway of the hospital. And they were like, okay, first thing we got to do is rinse out. In case there's any bullets or anything in this limo, we got to rinse it all out. So they hosed the whole thing down. Dude, they replaced the windshield of it. They replaced the windshield of the fucking limo because there was a bullet hole through it coming from the front. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. What the frick? What the Do you see this? Look at this windshield. That's a hole in a windshield. Yeah, they replaced this. Okay, then the gun, there's like 3 different versions of this frickin' gun, okay? The police came out with one gun. There was a different gun at the frickin' police station. And then the one that's in the pictures that they're all like, oh, look, it's Lee's gun. They're all different. There's a whole bunch of different guns. Then the magic bullet is literally an insane person theory. If you believe it, it's actually, that's like in the DSM-5, it only says the definition of insanity is if you believe the magic bullet theory. Then there's missing shells, dude. There's cops putting shells in their pocket and bringing them on planes. Dude, the neck wound is an entrance wound going this way, and they said that it is an exit wound. Like, everything is tainted. It's almost like the plan from the jump was to make it impossible to investigate.
We heard what to me sounded like 2 firecrackers. You know, it was starting to get a little confusing because you could see things happening in the car, and you didn't quite get what was happening until they got right here in front of us in the third shot, hit Mr. Kennedy right in his head. We knew.
But before we even get into like all of the minutia, because we're just gonna rail through here, I'm gonna show you so much stuff that you don't even have any questions about this anymore. But at the very, very simplest way, the story that the government says, that the FBI and everyone said, that Lee Harvey Oswald's shooting from behind up high is impossible just based on physics alone. If you watch the footage and you think, if something's getting hit by a bullet, where is it going to go? Doesn't matter if it's in a car. Doesn't matter if it's moving. If you get hit in the head by a bullet, where's your head going? With the bullet? Like that? Or against the bullet? Huh? What is it doing? When you get hit in the head with a bullet like this, do you push the bullet out? No. The bullet goes through you, and it pushes your head that same way, right? So if JFK is getting shot from behind up high, where's the bullet going to push his head? It's going to go like this. Right? So if I'm JFKZ and I'm getting hit from behind, I'm doing this. Donk. Right? Tell me I'm wrong. I dare you. Let's watch and see what way his head goes.
Hit Mr. Kennedy right in front of us in the third shot. Hit Mr. Kennedy in front of us in the third shot. Hit Mr. Kennedy right in his buddy. And then firecrackers. You know, it was starting to get a little confusing because you could see things happening in the car, and you didn't quite get what was happening until they got right here in front of us in the third shot, hit Mr. Kennedy right in his head. We knew what happened.
This harrowing footage.
You knew what happened. You knew that a shot was coming from where? Front right. Have you ever heard of the words grassy, knoll? You know, the place that every single person in the media in the last 60 years has goofed about people saying that that's where a shot came from? What if the shot came from there? What if that last one definitely did? What if it did?
After examination by the FBI, was immediately purchased by the publisher's Time Life and locked away from public scrutiny. Were it not for photo analyst Robert Groden, who gained access to the original and worked on it secretly, its real significance may have remained hidden forever.
We had been told that the president...
Wait. Time Life? You're telling me Henry Luce, Alan Dulles' best friend in the whole wide world, the guy who owns Time Life, he immediately bought the rights to the Zapruder film and locked it away so no one could see it? What, he just wanted it? He's like Martin Shkreli with that fucking that Wu-Tang album? Dude.
The president had been shot from behind, from the Texas School Book Depository. If that had happened, he would have been thrown forward. The transfer of momentum of the bullet striking him in the rear of the head. But what we saw was the exact opposite. When he was struck, he was thrown to the rear and to the left, indicating a shot from the grassy knoll. The knowledge that we had been lied to scared me. I felt if anybody knew what I knew, that I'd be in a great deal of danger. So I didn't tell anybody. I quietly worked on the film for years. The more evidence that I was able to develop in the film, for instance, the timing of the shots, when the first shot was fired, which was a lot earlier than the Warren Commission had told us, at a point when Oswald, had he been up in that window, could not have fired the shot, until the most frightening, horrifying physical aspects, the nature of the wounds to the president's head, which are visible in some frames after the headshot, much clearer than anything the public has ever been allowed to see. Living with that became a horror. Trying to keep that, afraid of being discovered that I knew that, that's what frightened me the most.
The Warren Commission ignored the film evidence of a
Guys, that's literally why I am so, adamant about getting this out, is because that's how I feel. If this could happen to JFK, the literal president of the United States, in broad daylight, people witnessed this. People knew what happened, and they were told, no, you're a liar. You're wrong. You conspiracy theorist. You're crazy. If it can happen to JFK, it will happen to all of us. It is scary. He is right. If this can happen too, anything is possible. These people are capable of anything. And they did it. Why? Because he was anti-war and for the people? That's nuts. That is treason.
Shot from the front. They were also selective in their choice of eyewitness testimony. Two members of the Willis family told them of hearing shots fired from behind the president's car. However, other vital evidence they tried to offer went unrecorded.
The implication was persuading, yes, ma'am, because all they wanted to know was 3 shots that probably came from the depository building, which I never have doubted. That's about all they wanted to hear. That about all got into the Warren Commission, really, that I heard 3 loud shots from a Texas depository.
The headshot seemed to come from the right front. It seemed to strike him here, and his head went back, and all of the brain matter went out the back of the head. It was like a red halo, a red circle with bright matter in the middle of it. It just went like that. It was a terrible time. You cannot imagine seeing this. You knew it happened, but you didn't want to believe it.
The particular headshot must have come from another direction besides behind him, because the back of his head blew off, and it doesn't make sense to be hit from the rear and still have your face intact. So he must have been hit from another position, possibly, in the front or over to the side. I really don't know where. But the back of his head blew off.
So I am very dead certain at least 1 shot, including the one that took the president's skull off, had to come from the right front. And I'll stand by that to my death, over my mother's grave.
Yes, I love these documentaries with these people, and you actually get to sit there and listen to them say it and not just read it or get someone else's interpretation of what happened, because I trust everything that man says. That whole family. Tell me they're liars. I dare you. Tell me they're liars. Okay. Then on top, see, this is the thing. It's not one thing. It's literally everything about the JFK assassination is forked. It's totally forked. The whole thing. One of these, any one of these things in another trial would get it dismissed and stuff. These people destroyed so much evidence. They tainted so many witnesses. They've made up so much evidence. They killed so many people. Like, if one of these things happened to any other trial, it would get looked at. But all of a sudden, it's the president of the United States, and no one's interested in looking in or seeing why the Department of Defense is destroying documents. Anyway, the DOD routinely destroyed Army intelligence file on Oswald in 1971. The Secret Service has been destroying records. Dude, I think I wrote 1993 because that was in the book, but I think very recently in the latest JFK releases, I'm pretty sure that someone was saying that the Secret Service deleted more or something. Anyway, the Dallas police had the negatives for the Oswald photo with the guns, which separately are also fake. They lost the arrest record for the Texas theater when, right after the assassination, Oswald was found at a theater and 900 police showed up to get him. It was almost like it was part of the plan or something. The presidential limo was immediately rebuilt. Like I said, they hosed it down, they put it on a plane, and they sent it back to D.C. They replaced the windshield. They rebuilt the rest of it to get all the blood and gore and all the frickin' bullet holes out of it, JFK's brain, missing. No one knows where it went. Seems pretty weird to me. Why would you lose the president's brain? He's like, oh, I just lost my frickin' homework and the president's brain. Like, dude. Anyway, these photos are everything that I'm talking about. I can't spend time on all of this stuff. I'm just doing an overview, right? Because people have done all of this work already. I am not here standing alone. This is on top of thousands of people's research, right? So any of this stuff that I'm saying, if you doubt me, you can look it up. You can see that I'm not lying. Because there is so much stuff, dude. The Zapruder film is fake. There's parts of it that are real, but there's parts of it that are basically photoshopped. Like, the evidence is faked. So much of it. I already told you about the guns. The guns are different. The guns change. The ones in the photo are different than the ones the police show. Dude. The autopsy photos are faked. They basically, they had to fake that the back of his head still existed because he got hit here and it splattered the back out. His face was fine. The back of it was missing. But if he got hit in the back of the head, it should still be there. So they did either some tomfoolery with photos, or they literally did cadaver Photoshop. They photoshopped JFK's body with real life cadavers. His brain is also probably missing because it exploded. But there were pieces of it. A lot of people were finding it all sorts of places. The positioning of all of the bullet holes in the autopsy are wrong and lies. The doctors have confessed at this point. They basically made everyone scared for their life who was involved with this to never talk again, and then they killed most of them anyway. The Oswald prints that are found on the gun, they are found after Oswald is dead, but it had already been brushed before. As soon as Oswald did it, they went and looked at the gun. They said, "Oh, there's no frickin' prints on this." And then Oswald dies. The coroner says, "Yeah, a bunch of FBI agents came late one night, the night that Oswald died, and they kept putting black stuff all over his hands and ink and touching stuff. And I know because I had to keep washing the black stuff off of his hands." So I think reasonably you could suspect that they went and they got prints from his dead body after they killed him so he couldn't tell everyone. The entire book depository story is a fabrication. There's no way that he could have done it from there, even if he did. Even if he frickin' wanted to. And then the testimony of so many witnesses, dude. They falsified the testimony of so many people who came and they said true things. They said, the shots came from the grassy knoll, or the shots came from, sounded like toward the tunnel or something. And then they literally made them say the opposite. The Warren report is total BS. All right, meet Jack Ruby.
Meanwhile, the Warren Commission, charged by President Johnson to find the truth, operated almost entirely in secret. Based in Washington, the commissioners finally came to Dallas. Their spokesman was former CIA Director Allen Dulles.
Are you convinced that he was shot from the school book depository?
Well, I think we better leave all that, you know, the evidence report will cover all of that, and we'll get into that, but that question might lead to a lot more, and...
Earl Warren, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, also came, with Commissioner Gerald Ford, a future president. The prime purpose of their visit was to interview Jack Ruby.
Wait, sorry, I just gotta go back and just say real quick. This is my arch nemesis. I always forget, not everyone probably knows, but this is Allen Dulles. This is Satan's spawn. This is literally Satan's mother, actually. Allen Jeffrey Dulles. I don't know if it's Jeffrey, but sounds like it. This dude is evil incarnate. He is pure, unadulterated capitalism. He is scum. This is the guy that UAE federally, he works at the same place that this guy worked at, Sullivan and Cromwell. Oh, brother. But yeah, Allen Dulles, I hope, dude, he deserves his own special hell.
A lot more, and...
Earl Warren, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, also came, with Commissioner Gerald Ford, a future president. The prime purpose of their visit was to interview Jack Ruby, who had appealed against his sentence. A frightened man, he claimed he could not talk freely in Dallas and begged 8 times to be taken to Washington to testify.
Oh yeah, real quick, we're jumping around a little bit, but if you also don't know, Lee Harvey Oswald got caught like an hour after the shooting, right, at a Texas theater, and it was weird. Like, all of the police knew that he was going to be there, and someone called in. He was like, "Hey, I think he went in there," and like 600 cops went and beat his ass, and then they arrested him that night. They interrogated him for like 4 hours. Apparently, there's literally no tapes of it. He didn't have a lawyer, even though he kept requesting a lawyer. He said, I'm a patsy, which he was telling the truth. IMO. And then the last thing was that, what was the last thing? I forgot the last thing, but I'll remember it.
Commissioners left, ignoring his pleas.
Everything pertaining to what's happening has never...
Oh, yeah, and then the night after, they're like transferring Lee Harvey Oswald to the prison from the police house or whatever, police station, and this dude, Jack Ruby, a guy who owns a nightclub, he goes and he pew-pews Lee Harvey Oswald, kills him dead. We never hear from Lee Harvey Oswald again. We never find out why he's saying he's a patsy, or why he has weird connections to Russia and intelligence and all of these people that are involved, including Jack Ruby. He knows Jack Ruby. Anyway, so Jack Ruby killed him, and then Jack Ruby's in prison for killing Lee Harvey Oswald. He said that he did it for, I think at the time he literally said, I did it for Jewish people, which people I think took that they thought, he thinks that Kennedy was going to like do stuff to Jewish people, but guys, we literally know now, he probably meant he did it for Zion. He did it for I-word, because they can't have this guy from intelligence running his mouth saying, hey, I didn't have anything to do with this. What the heck? I didn't do this. They can't be saying that, because someone's got to take the fall. Otherwise, they're going to keep looking.
The world will never know the true facts of what occurred, my motives. The people that had so much to gain and had such an ulterior motive for putting me in a position I'm in will never let the true facts come above board to the world.
Now, these people are in very high positions, Jack.
What's up?
Yes.
The Warren report concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald, acting alone, killed President Kennedy. Incarcerated in his cell overlooking Dealey Plaza for another 2.5 years, Jack Ruby suddenly contracted cancer and died at Parkland Hospital. With his silence permanently guaranteed, Ruby's body was flown to Chicago, the place of his birth, for burial. Only now, a quarter of a century after the president's death in Dallas, is the appalling truth behind his assassination and its cover-up revealed.
Dude, I'm so sick of this. Dude, even the fake cancer is killing me at this point. Like, no one ever questions it. Oh, yep. Guy got sad. He was in prison. Idiot. Duh. There was literally so much fucking police and FBI intimidation of witnesses and anybody questioning the Warren Commission. It's like nutty. Here, let's look. Okay. Here's something about the falsified testimony. Still others would claim that the information they gave to the FBI hadn't been recorded accurately and that the testimony published by the Warren Commission didn't reflect what they'd say. They told me, if you didn't see Lee Harvey Oswald up in the school book depository with a rifle, you didn't witness it. I said, well, then I saw... The man I saw on television that they tell me is Lee Harvey Oswald was not in the window of the school book depository. That's not the man. And one of the agents said, I better keep my mouth shut. He did not ask me what I saw, and he told me what I saw. Carr testified for Jim Garrison at the Clay Shaw trial in New Orleans, but afterward was attacked by two men in Atlanta and stabbed him in the back and left arm. Carr killed one of the attackers, but was not indicted after turning himself in. Dude, this is so nuts. And this is just one story. There's dozens. There's more than dozens. There's so much, dude. Okay, early critic Vince Salandria and his brother-in-law Harold Feldman went to Dallas in June 1964 to talk to Helen Markham. Accompanying them was Oswald's mother, Marguerite. The Markham's adult son, Bill, followed them to the car, and after attempting to get money for information he claimed to have, eventually told them that the Secret Service had warned his parents that there would be trouble for them if they talked to outsiders. Akia Clemens reported she saw two men at the scene of the Tippett slaying. Neither of them Oswald. Alleged that a man with a gun came to her home afterward and told her to keep quiet. Ed Hoffman, the deaf mute who belatedly came forward and claimed to have seen two men with a rifle behind the picket fence on the grassy knoll, claimed he was warned by an FBI agent to keep quiet or you might get killed. Book Depository Superintendent Roy Truly was evidently fearful until his death because of intimidation from authorities. Truly's wife Mildred wouldn't mention the assassination even with relatives. Sandry Speaker, as the supervisor for an construction crew working across the street from the book depository on November 22nd, 1963, which included Warren Commission's star witness Howard Brennan. He refused to talk about the assassination for many years. However, in 1987, interview with the author Jim Mars, he reported that he had received a frightening phone call from coworker and friend A.J. Millikan in 1964, in which Millikan advised him never to discuss the assassination. Check this. The day after the assassination, Lee Bowers was on duty in the railroad tower overlooking the parking lot in Grassy Knoll area, just west of the book depository building. Bowers reported seeing men he didn't recognize in the area. Then, Bowers, he described the driver of one of these as holding a mic or microphone or something, a decidedly unusual feature for the automobile of that era. Then guess what happened to Bowers? Bowers mysteriously disappeared for about 2 days. Before his death. When he returned, Bowers was missing one of his fingers, giving a nonsensical excuse for it. And then Bowers was among all the mysterious deaths connected to this case, dying in a one-car crash on August 9th, 1966. Friend Walter Rochelle would later tell reporter that he was afraid to reveal everything he knew. Rochelle stated that Bowers had maintained in private that he had seen two men get out of the car carrying rifles and later saw both men fire shots. Of special interest is Rochelle's claim that Bowers mysteriously disappeared for about 2 days shortly before his death. When he returned, Bowers was missing one of his fingers. Julia Ann Mercer was a potentially crucial witness who provided the authorities with unwanted information. About an hour before the assassination, Mercer had witnessed a man exiting a pickup truck carrying a rifle. Proceeded to walk to the grassy knoll. She saw 3 police police officers nearby who showed no curiosity about this. She got a good look at the driver, and when shown a series of mugshots by the FBI the day after the assassination, one of those she selected had the name Jack Ruby written on it. These all have been altered. They have me saying just the opposite of what I really told them. So classic. Brother Bear. Also, the bullets came from literally everywhere except for the book depository building. Okay? We got shots coming from the grassy knoll, right? I'll get to this picture in a minute. Look, it says, today I learned there are 121 witnesses to the JFK assassination, and 51 of them are believed shots came from the grassy knoll. A further study examined 64 witnesses, with over half putting gunshots from the knoll. Then people said that a bullet may have come from the tunnel area, which was directly in front of the limousine, which kind of would make sense, you know, since there was a bullet hole through the front windshield of the limousine. Then, this one is a little bit cuckoo, but I don't think so. We're talking about the CIA here and a bunch of goofballs. Look into the Umbrella Man. You can make your own decision. I don't really care whether or not it's real, because I know that the shot came from the grassy knoll, from the guy pretending to be a police officer that looks like this. That's him. But the umbrella bitch is a fun story, because look, we're talking about CIA umbrella guns. We're talking about, look, this is a weapons developer talking about a frickin' umbrella gun. Let's just take a peep. Described an umbrella poison dart gun he had made. He said it was always used in crowds with the umbrella open, firing through the webbing so it would not attract attention. Since it was silent, no one in the crowd could hear it, and the assassin merely would fold up the umbrella and saunter away with the crowd. That is almost exactly what happened in Dealey Plaza, so that suddenly the weapon became believable. Like, maybe that could have been the throat dart. Who knows? No idea. But doesn't matter, because we're never gonna investigate it. Dude, Joe Brandon right now will not release all of the JFK documents. Do you know why? They say it's for national security. Do you understand why now? National security of people finding out that our government is run by treasonous traitor rat snakes. That's it. That's what they're scared of. They don't want you to know that the entire house of cards is built on a base of shit. It is built on a coup done by a bunch of business assholes, a bunch of business extremists. Okay? So, yeah, we got to tear this whole thing down, guys. It's built on lies. It's built on shit. It's built on a literal coup. We did so many coups in the 60s, we cooed ourselves. And look, no one gives a shit. Except for me. And you. Anyway, what the fuck's up, boyos? We just watched motherfucking Vanderpump Rules. Dude, Tom Sandoval needs to chill the fuck out. Life is not a motherfucking, he thinks it's a play. He thinks he's an actor. He's ruining his relationship with a beautiful... I mean, he did it. It's gone. But, like, this dude is not. He needs to learn how to keep reality from, like, the scripting of his show, and also think about, like, real people's real feelings. But anyway, where the fuck were we? Magic Bullet. The Magic Bullet makes me mad.
Did change the outcome of the Warren report.
So late in the day, the commission were left with only 2 bullets to cause all the wounds to both Kennedy and Connolly, and one of those bullets had to have injured both men. To explain this, Arlen Specter, a counsellor to the commission, created the single bullet theory, known to critics as the magic bullet.
The infamous magic bullet. We have that bullet exiting from President Kennedy's neck, moving forward and leftward and downward. It now stops in midair, it turns to the right, it comes back a full 18 inches, stops again, and then slams into John Connolly's back. It continues downward, and it goes through his wrist, and somehow they get that right wrist over to the left thigh. If you look at the Zapruder film, you'll see in the individual frames that John Connolly's right wrist is not near John Connolly's left thigh. The significance of this, the importance, cannot be exaggerated. It is impossible to overstate it. Why? Because the single bullet theory is the sine qua non of the Warren Commission report. It's not a matter of how much weight and credibility do you give to it. It's a matter of whether or not you have a single bullet theory that permits you to conclude that there was only one person firing, whether it was Oswald or anybody else in the world. If you don't have a single bullet theory, then you cannot have a sole assassin. And if you move to that point, then you're into conspiracy by definition. And that's why it had to stop with Oswald as a sole assassin. And that's why they came up with the single bullet theory. There's no question in my mind that that 26-volume set should be taken from the shelves of all the libraries where they now rest in the United States from nonfiction and placed in the fiction shelves along with Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, and Gulliver's Travels. That's where they belong.
Dans le poubelle, bitch. They belong in the garbage. Yes, they do. They are ass. They are trash. Dude, they ought to be... This is the thing that's pissing me off the most, is that they did all this stuff, right? And they literally didn't even work hard to cover it up. That pisses me off. Like, everything that we see with what they've done with the NASA BS. Okay, we're done with this frickin' magic bullet. It is a fiction. It is story time. Bro, look at this shit. I am from Wisconsin. I have shot lots of guns. This did not get fired into anything. This maybe got fired into like a pillow. This, you're saying this came from the 6th floor. It bonked JFK's lower back and then came out his frickin' throat, right? Then it went through the front seat of the limo, went through Connolly's back, all the way through his entire body, went into his wrist, took a left turn, went into his leg, and get this, that's not the end. It apparently went all the way through his leg or pushed out of his thigh, and it was found on a gurney inside of Parkland Hospital. This is not by Parkland Hospital. This is not when they're at Parkland Hospital. But this bullet went through everybody's body into Connolly's left thigh, and then he sucked it out like snake venom and spit it onto the gurney. I mean, give me a better explanation. Alan Dulles would be fucking proud of me. He would be very, very, very proud of me. But anyway, the fuck were we talking about? Fuck the magic bullet. It's dumb. There's no way that magic bullet came from... Alright, boys, so we figured out. I don't think the bullets are coming from behind. I don't think they're coming from the book depository. So let's figure out who the frick did the shooting from the grassy knoll. So every person who's ever been like, oh, the grassy knoll, they're an asshole. If you're related to them, be unrelated to them because they're a dick. The grassy knoll's where the kill shot came from. Bet.
By 2 researchers in Texas, Jack White and Gary Mack, there is at last convincing evidence of a gunman up on the grassy knoll.
Here is the guy that we call Badgeman, and it appears to me that from our study of it, his waist is right at the top.
Also, real quick, remember we said like 100 people were like, yeah, the shots came from up there. And I'll also show you a shot later where everyone is running up the hill, almost as if they're chasing after the person.
Top of the wooden fence.
Who killed the fucking president?
Gary Mack was the first to isolate the image, now known as Badgeman.
What I was looking at, to a lot of people, might have just been like looking at an ink blot or something. And all of a sudden, I started to see eyes and ears and forehead and hair. And little by little, the pieces of this image started to make sense to me. And that's when I first called Jack. And with his photographic work doing the blow-ups, we could see more and more and more detail. And at one point, we realized that this fellow was probably wearing a police uniform, or some type of uniform that was close enough to what the Dallas police were wearing.
Okay, guys, stick with me here. This took me a minute to see, too. Hold your eyes back a little bit, right? We're talking about a tiny little thing. This is a puff of smoke. This is an eye, nose, hairline. This is possibly a puff of smoke or another person. And then here is the thing that's important. Well, this obviously could be a star. This looks like a patch of some sort, but they'll go into good detail.
So that he could pass as a police officer. And really, to me, that was the one scary moment, because that was such a brilliant plan. A police officer in that location, away from where people were watching. If anyone did see him, they wouldn't think anything about it, because there were police in that area, although nowhere near where we see this guy. So this guy was an imposter. And I got chills then, because that was the realization that this was a very cleverly, well thought out plan.
You have to keep in mind that the Mary Mormon picture is about this size, and the area that we're dealing with is about a 1/4 inch square. So the area that Badgeman appears in is very tiny, and that's why the attempts to enhance it photographically have been very difficult over the years.
This small area was the scene of an extraordinary encounter. Behind the picket fence, there is a car park, and in 1963, Gordon Arnold was a 22-year-old serviceman, just out of training camp and en route to a posting in Alaska. This is his first...
This bit is a little bit long, but this stuff is all important, guys, because it's not just one smoking gun piece of evidence. It's the totality of it all. It's the sheer magnitude of the mess-ups, the witnesses, the people who were killed. Dude, it's like, there's photographs of people who were involved. Like, dude, it's so crazy. The police rounded up all the cameras and took everyone's film. And they never showed it again until Zapruder's magic film came around. You guys ever notice how weirdly the zoomed in it seems like the Zapruder film is? Like, why isn't Zapruder filming the car? The car, he should be filming, like, most of the car. He barely got his head. Zapruder definitely should never quit his day job and be a photographer or anything. He's ass. Anyway, this dude is freaking awesome. Listen, pay attention, stick with it. This is important.
What happened was I came downtown and I thought there was going to be a parade. So what I did was I parked my vehicle back here in this parking lot, and I intentionally walked to this particular corner because I wanted to take pictures of the parade off of the railroad bridge. Well, this is about as far as I got, because what happened is when I got my leg to about this position, a man came around the corner off the bridge, had a suit on, and he turned around and he told me that I wasn't going to be there. And I guess I was younger and more spunky at that time because I told him, you and who else is going to keep me off the bridge? And he pulled out an identification card and he said, I'm with the CIA. And I said, well, that's enough muscle. I'll leave. So I turned around and brought my leg back over like this. I walked down the fence line here about halfway. And I was looking over the fence to see if I could get a good shot of the parade. And he came back up and he told me, he says, I told you to get out of this area. And I said, okay. So I walked the complete length of the fence, got around on the other side. That's when I started to line up my frame so that I could take the picture of the parade. I had been panning shots through here so that I could get whatever was going to come down the street. And I saw that it was the President of the United States. And as I was panning down this direction, just as I got to about this position, a shot came right past my left ear. And that meant it would have had to come from this direction. And that's when I fell down. And to me, it seemed like a second shot was at least fired over my head. There's a bunch of report going on in this particular area at that time. And what happened was that while I was laying on the ground, it seemed like a gentleman came from this particular direction. And I thought it was a police officer because he had a uniform of a police officer. But he didn't wear a hat. And he had dirty hands. But it didn't really matter much at that time because with him crying like he was, and with him shaking when he had the weapon in his hand, I think I'd have gave him almost anything except the camera because that was my mother's. And literally what the man did was kick me and asked me if I was taking a picture. I told him that I was. And when I looked at the weapon, it was about that big around, and I decided I'd let him go ahead and have the film. I gave it to him, and then he went back off in this direction. I went off in this direction. And 3 days later, I was in Alaska. And I didn't come back to the United States for about 18 months.
We spent a lot of time studying the picture and looking at little details, and I guess in the back of our minds was a story that had come out 4 years earlier by a man named Gordon Arnold, who claimed to be a witness to the assassination and claimed to have been standing up by the fence. And there was a light blob of something very close to where Badgeman was, and we weren't sure what it was, but gradually as details started coming out with Jack's photo work, we realized that this image was probably Gordon Arnold. And here's a guy who had told his story just to an acquaintance and was overheard, and that story went off to the news media, and Gordon Arnold was interviewed, and it appeared in the newspaper.
My boy, my freaking boy, Gordon Arnold. Dude, I love this guy.
That he had been at the scene and was in that location, but no one believed him because there were no photographs or films that showed a man.
I believe you without the film, Gordon.
In that position. But all of a sudden, the Mormon picture confirmed his story. And again, the interesting part.
Not that kind. It's her last name. It has two N's. It's not that kind. But I think they're involved.
Part is that Gordon Arnold's story came out 4 years before we noticed the appearance of this figure in the Mormon photograph.
We later learned that Arnold was wearing this Army cap that had a slight point at the top and a medallion on the right-hand side that said U.S. Army, and it's exactly what we see in the photograph. We also know that Gordon Arnold was filming the scene with a movie camera, and that's exactly what the photograph shows, because we see the right arm of the person in this position with his hand up toward his face and what appears to be obstructing his face, something perhaps like a movie camera.
You want to check that measurement once again?
Yeah, this is
Gary and Jack's work has been...
Dude, tell me these guys don't know what they're talking about. They're a bunch of bros with the tism. I can see it I know it when I see it. I trust these boys with their measurements and their what did they call? I forget. Spectrometry, spectromagnob. I don't know what they call it, but I trust these boys. They did brilliant work on that photo. Okay, here we go. Part 2 of Badgeman. This is incredible.
This colorized version of the Badgeman picture was shown to Gordon Arnold for the first time. He has always believed there was no proof of his presence on the knoll that day.
Looks like a soldier in summer uniform with an overseas cap on. It looks like it would have been my uniform. It looks like there's a camera. Or there's something up in front of the face.
Dude, watching him realize it in real time is awesome.
A white spot. If it's a flash, it would be like off of a muzzle flash. This looks like a police officer because that would be the badge.
And the colorizing is just to help show where, they're just trying to colorize it to help. But all of the black levels and white levels are from the photo, So, but if they're right and this is truly the forms that they're seeing,
that would be the arm emblem. Would this fella back here be the railroad man I asked you about this morning? Because when I was walking to the site, and I had never told anybody that when we were out there filming, it reminded me that there was a railroad worker just standing out there by the railroad tracks. But it looks like somebody taking a picture. Yeah, I couldn't figure out why would I be standing crooked until I flipped that up, and if that's a muzzle blast or flash, then whoever's standing there would have been a fool to stand up straight. He'd been trying to get away from harm's way is what it boils down to. And that could very well be me. Son of a gun. That would be the closest thing that I've ever... To be honest with you, the picture bothers me because if this is a true thing of what has occurred, then I could be the only one that saw the man.
oh my God, his hands are shaking.
They killed the president. And to be honest with you, if I'd have known this, I wouldn't have given the interview. He said it's too close to home right now.
If the figure is real, then that means the witnesses were correct, and the researchers who have spoken of conspiracy for 25 years now were also correct. It means the Warren Commission was wrong. There was a conspiracy. The question then is, who was involved in the conspiracy? And alongside with that is, was Lee Harvey Oswald involved in the conspiracy? One of the good things the Warren Commission did was literally itemize the last few days of Lee Harvey Oswald's life. And the problem for the Warren Commission now would become, well, he had no opportunity to be with other people to plan something like this. So we now have to wonder, seriously, perhaps for the first time, whether Lee Harvey Oswald even fired any shots.
The search for the men who did...
Yeah, get some. Dude, I'm so freaking pumped right now. Okay, first off, tell me that our man
I couldn't
Gordon
figure out why would...
is a liar. Tell me to my face my man Gordon is a liar. Try and do it. I dare you. Bah! Try and do it. Tell Gordon he's a liar to his face. Bah! Don't you ever. This man speaks truth. I don't know, I forgot if it was in the clip, but this man, right after this, after the assassination, he went to Alaska because he was scared. Because he didn't want to get seen. He didn't want to get found. He knew what was coming. This man is smart. This man is... or was still scared. This is like in the 80s, I think. This man is still terrified. He said, I would not have done this interview if I knew you had this. If I knew you had proof and that I'm not crazy. He's like, I thought I just made it up. He's like, this is proof that I didn't make it up. And now I'm terrified. That's concerning. That is very concerning. Because he knows the truth. He knew what the fudge was going on, man. Okay, here we go. Here we Here we go. Now, let's find out who the frickin' guy was.
Pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. From the lips of...
Oh, actually, real quick, before we do that, I want to show you this part of the Zapruder film, where this is dope, actually. This is what, like, made me realize that everything is not as it seems. So there's two people that fall here. There's a dude that's in the background over here that looks like he's diving away from, like, shots being fired. Let's see if we catch. There's two guys. There's one guy, and then there's one guy later, more towards the tunnel. See how he's diving away? One more time. Diving away. Now, if you hear a loud bang and you dive, where are you diving? You diving towards it? You diving away from it? Where are you going? Diving away from it, right? Which means what? He's hearing... The building is like 100 feet in the air and 200 feet that way, and he's diving out of the way like it's right next to him, but towards the bullet? No, he's diving away from the frickin'... The tunnel is this way. And this guy too, he's running from the tunnel. You see him? Watch this, bro. Running from the tunnel. One more time. He's about to dive. Yep, dives away. And then this guy's running from the tunnel. Okay. Then let's do this. Just some more proof that this is doctored. Look at all these people. Look at how stone still they are. It's very odd, too, that their silhouettes and stuff perfectly match the time life. So I'm pretty sure that the CIA had early access to Adobe Photoshop and stuff. They would just, they just did it by hand. And these are skills that were used at the time. These are things that we know they're capable of. They used the cutout method to get the photos of Lee holding the gun in his backyard and stuff. But check this out. Anyway, I can't fucking Google these photos. I can't figure out where they are. What the fuck? Anyway, I can show it without. The claim is that some of these people... It kind of looks oddly like these people are photoshopped into the Zapruder film. Just saying. They stand stone still. And they're, it's a bunch of people watching a parade go by. All those people are clapping and stuff back there. These people are stone still. Whatever. The sign is definitely wrong. You can almost even see it in here. Like these are sprocket holes. This is stuff that's not meant to be like captured, but it was. People got access to it when they actually got access to the Zapruder film that Time magazine has been hiding away for the last 60 years because it's evidence. But look, you can even see that the sign expands. This sign right now, I think, is fake. Boom. Now that's the back part, I think, is real. But anyway, it's too long. Watch. You can even see. Look how long it is there. That's longer. So, I don't know. There's some hokum going on here with this. We know that. We know that there's parts of JFK's head that they literally did splatter. They painted splatter. They did. Or they're covering up, the actual direction of some of the mist and stuff. So yeah, there's weird movements. A lot of people have done a lot of research on it. They've done lots of measurements and stuff, and there's something going on. So I think what's suspected is that the the footage of the Zapruder film is much bigger. It's like, could be like double almost. And they're covering up parts that they need to because they had like 3 shooters. I think this umbrella guy is one. See right here in the this umbrella. It's possible that it could be, you know, one of the things that hit him. This guy right here, these two were part of a team. They were seen before and after, like being together. And one of them had a radio. And he's sitting here waving his hand like this. It's almost like it could also be a spotter team situation where he's trying to get the attention of, you know, JFK or whatever. Or it's a signal to the shooter, possibly. But yeah, so those are just a couple of the things from the Zapruder film. But those are just the fun things because the rest of the stuff is really dark. But anyway, where the fuck were we? But yeah, see, here's the umbrella guy. This is the other angle of him. So he's standing here without, he's like just standing there. It's the middle of the day. So weird. But anyway, they said the CIA has these weird ass umbrella guns. Boom, right there. See? Umbrella gun. Blammo. Umbrella gun. Don't 3D print these at home, kids. Our government is providing plans for umbrella. Next.
The final pieces.
So this is the guy that actually did it.
Of the puzzle were falling into place. From the lips of Michel Nicoli, Steve now had the names of the other 2 assassins. He now sought to confirm their participation from his first informant, still awaiting trial in his prison cell in Paris.
At that point, I then went back to David. I gave him all 3 names, and in effect, he confirmed them. When I showed David an aerial photograph of Dealey Plaza, the first thing he said was, "Show me where the railroad bridge is." I pointed out the bridge over Elm Street, and he said that was where Sartee wanted to be. But on the morning of the assassination, the bridge was guarded, and he was forced, as he said, to move on to the little hill with the wooden fence. He took up a position from behind the wooden fence from which he fired 1 shot, and David specified that he used an explosive bullet. Now,
does that make sense now why it went?
He said that Sartee was the only one who used that kind of ammunition, a remark which he refused to explain and which I didn't understand at the time, until I put the question to Michel. When I asked Michel if it were true that Sartee had used an exploding bullet, Michel sighed and said, yes, that was what I had heard.
Yes, it's Lucien Sartee.
And he doesn't really explicitly say it, and the other guy's playing coy a little bit, but I think Lucien Sartee is like, he's a hitman who's like a showman hitman. You know, like, he's like, I'm going to make a spectacle of it. His whole thing was like taking risks that were insane, and that somehow that is probably also why he didn't get, like, he was able to do it for so long. I don't know. But he's like a deranged psycho who does hits, and he wants to make the president's head go kablooey. But also apparently it makes the bullet disappear, so.
Me too. I sometimes carried them with me, but I didn't use them. The bullet flattens out. There aren't any traces, no marks, nothing.
On the question of payment, Michel agreed with David that the assassins had been paid in heroin, and he went a bit farther. In my first conversation with him, he indicated that although he did not know it at the time, it was he who converted the heroin payment into cash for the assassins. He indicated, at least initially, that the 3 men had appeared at his apartment in Buenos Aires in the months following the assassination with, as he put it, a substantial quantity of heroin. He was surprised because, to his knowledge, it was the first time that any of the 3 of them had dealt in heroin. But given his reputation for not asking embarrassing questions, he simply agreed to convert the heroin into cash for them.
Did they ever give you any indication about who was behind this contract?
No, they didn't talk to me about that. It was Christian David who told me that it was someone in the mafia, but I don't know who it was.
But it was known more or less generally in this circle of Frenchmen in South America that it was the mafia that was behind it.
Yes.
My own conviction at this point is that the contract probably originated with Carlos Marcello of New Orleans, who placed it in Marseille through his colleague Santos Traficante Jr., who had the closest relations with Antoine Guérini. Beyond that, it seems reasonable that Giancana of Chicago was involved, if we accept David and Michel's idea that the assassins were met at the border by representatives of the Chicago Mafia, and the fact that Sarti's customers were primarily in New York, and the fact that the assassins evidently moved out of the United States through the Montreal corridor, which was very closely linked to the New York Mafia, also suggests that Gambino may have been involved.
In your view, why would they go so far to find assassins for such a job?
In my opinion, to obliterate any traces, to fool the government. Yes, it's more difficult to find foreign killers. It's more difficult, in my view.
The Mafia had to hire white men for the job since it was to take place in the American South, which meant that they could not go to the other two centers where one found assassins at that time, namely Beirut and Hong Kong. Secondly, they needed highly experienced, skilled assassins. Thirdly, they needed assassins who, if they were caught, could not directly be tied to the American Mafia, and also who were not known to the American police. And fourthly, once again, if they were caught, assassins who could be counted on not to talk.
When someone has a contract to kill someone, he's not rubbing out the name, he's rubbing out the person. You just have to kill him, that's all. And according to who it is, you get paid more. According to who it is, and that's all.
But after all, it was the President of the United States they were talking about.
If they did it, it's because they didn't give a damn. There are people like David who refused to do it. There were others who didn't refuse.
But Sarti, would he have been capable of that?
Oh, yes. As a killer, he's capable of anything. It's not a question of sentiment. No sentiment with him.
I couldn't pursue the matter much farther on my own. And to this point, I had been working on it for 3 years, essentially on my own.
So yeah, it's all just for money. Isn't that awesome? It's freaking awesome. Okay, but who ordered it? Who had the money? I wonder, guys. Who usually has the money? Oil people. And frickin' the Z words. And frickin' Alan Dulles. And the CIA. And the FBI. And probably the Momos. The high up Mormons.
Without my authorization.
So real quick, I skipped some parts because we don't have 600 hours, but that dude basically ended up giving this dude a bunch of names, and he went back and he's like, is it these names? And this is them confirming it.
His envelope details important to find murderers, because I think there were murderers, and not only one murderer. That's what it is in this envelope. That's what I think about that.
With the new evidence that has emerged from these investigations, so many of the mysteries surrounding the murder of the president can at last be explained. Not least of all, the manipulation of the medical evidence to conceal the devastating effects of the dum-dum bullet fired from the right front by Lucien Sarti. The use of such a distinctive missile and its trajectory would have been immediately apparent at a normal autopsy, as Dr. Cyril Wecht explains.
A frangible bullet is one that is constructed to literally break apart upon impact. Some people call it an exploding missile, some people call it a dum-dum, but they're not quite the same. I think the more correct technical word would be a frangible bullet. If a frangible bullet had been fired from the right side, then it would have, of course, dispersed into dozens, if not hundreds, of fragments, leaving no significant piece of itself intact. There were many small pieces of metal that were never subjected to neutron activation analysis testing. And unless that was done, you see, we could never know for sure whether all of the fragments came from one particular bullet or one batch of bullets. That's the significance of the brain examination relating to whether there was a second gunman, and also the possibility of whether a frangible bullet had been used by that second gunman firing from the right side.
I've become convinced that Oswald had nothing to do with the assassination, and that he was very carefully chosen and very carefully set up to take the blame. Based upon what I've learned, it seems to me that all the principals involved in the plot to kill the president had ties of one kind or another with U.S. intelligence agencies. There was Traficante and Giancana, who had been conspiring with the CIA to assassinate Fidel Castro. Antoine Guérini, who had had a relationship with both the OSS and the CIA dating from 1943. And there was Oswald, whom I'm satisfied had been used as a low-level intelligence operative. So even though I don't think that the CIA, for example, had anything directly to do with the assassination, on the day after the assassination, they found themselves in a horribly compromised position, a position in which they could very easily have been blackmailed by the plotters into covering up whatever they knew about the assassination.
But the Mafia could hardly have acted alone, given the intricacy of the assassination plot and the strength of the cover-up for 25 years. Colonel Fletcher Prouty was Chief of Special Operations of the Joint Chiefs of Staff during Kennedy's presidency. He believes even more powerful forces were ultimately responsible.
I think without any question, it's what we call the use of hired gunmen. And this isn't new. In fact, this little manual here, which is called the Assassination Manual for Latin America, contains a line which says that, talking about Latin America, if possible, professional criminals will be hired to carry out specific selective jobs in quote, which means murders. Well, if this manual for Latin America, printed within the last few years, and a government manual, says that, there's no question but what the application of the same techniques was dated back in Kennedy's time. In fact, I know that from my own experience. I was in that business in those days. So, with that knowledge, you begin to realize that hired criminals, the way this book says, can be hired by anybody in power with sufficient money to pay them, but more importantly, with sufficient power to operate the cover-up ever after. Because you see, there's one thing to kill somebody. It's another thing to cover up the fact that you did it or that you hired somebody to do it. And that's more difficult. So they use the device of the Warren Commission report to cover up their hired killers. Now, who would hire the killers? And who has the power to put the Warren Commission report out over the top of the whole story? You see, you're dealing with a very high echelon of power. It doesn't necessarily reside in any government. It doesn't necessarily reside in any single corporate institution, but it seems to reside in a blend of the two. Otherwise, how could you have gotten people like the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to participate in the cover-up, the police in Dallas to participate in the cover-up, etc., and the media, all the media, not just one or two newspapers, but none of them will print the story that other than Oswald killed the president with 3 bullets, something that's absolutely untrue.
I think it's extremely important for the American people to know that there can.
It's all the media, all the YouTubers, it's everything. You guys know this better than anyone. It's fucking all of it. It's all of it. And how do you think they're doing it? It's fucking money, dog.
Can be the overthrow of a government, that there can be a coup d'etat in America, that in fact did happen through the assassination of President Kennedy, in order to prevent that kind of thing from happening again, in order to expose the forces that were responsible for that kind of murder and the kind of cover-up that has ensued in the following 25 years. It's necessary to expose it. Otherwise, we can have the same thing repeated again. Therefore, in the same fashion that we have exposed problems and scandals involved with Watergate, problems in Vietnam, problems in Central America, problems in the overthrow of governments elsewhere like Allende in Chile, and on and on and on, so must we expose that same kind of political assassination in our country. As painful as it may be, as disruptive as it might be in a transitory nature, as embarrassing as it might be to certain individuals and organizations in the United States government, that has to be uncovered. If they were able to do it to John F. Kennedy then, they could do it to some other president in the future.
Let's go! He's like West Winging him out. West Wing, all right, babies. We're gonna take our country back from these goddamn jackals, these monsters. You killed our president in broad daylight. Oh, come on. What's up? Past me? Why did you stop it so early? You should have anticipated that I was gonna make a riveting, powerful speech right now, and I needed that music. And past me, once again, sabotaging future me. Tale as old as time. All right, here we go, boys. Let's get into some fun stuff, too. Guys, when I tell you that every single thing I'm talking about is like frickin' established at this point, so many people have put so much time and effort into this, so much more than our goddamn government. It's really sad. It's pathetic. It pisses me off every time I think about it, that like a kid like dies in Rikers because of a backpack that he didn't steal because he couldn't get out on bail for 3 years, and all of the other atrocities that happen every day in the justice system. Meanwhile, these monsters in broad daylight did this to the only president who ever gave a shit about humans and the earth and shit. And they fucking shot his head off in broad daylight. And they were like, what? That pisses me off. Like, there's a really compelling case for, there were obviously a body double used for something. Like, there's a version of Oswald that's in Mexico City shortly before the assassination, trying to get, like, a visa or something to Russia. Most likely starting the framing process. So there's a whole bunch of variations like this guy, or wait, this guy. That's such a, I don't know, man. All these Oswalds, look at them. They're all so weird and goofy. There's a bunch of composites. There's a whole bunch of compelling evidence for composite photos, bro. There's a bunch of, like, where's the one where his head's like 10 feet tall? Oh, it's not on this photo. Whatever. But yeah, check that stuff out. Oh yeah, Woody Harrelson's dad's involved. You're welcome.
But there is significant evidence that would make, I think, any investigator want to look at Mr. Harrelson very, very closely.
That is a photograph of one.
This is Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey's dad.
One of 3 so-called tramps who were apprehended and then mysteriously disappeared on the day of the Kennedy assassination. And the fellow was...
He's like, I heard.
I'm told at one time positively identified as myself, which is ludicrous if you look at the man. I was 25 the day Kennedy was assassinated, and I would say that gentleman is probably in his mid to late 30s at the very least. But the facial structures isn't even close.
Mr. Harrelson's photograph was given along with the tall tramp photographs to forensic anthropologists, two independent bodies or people, and they came back with a report that there was a 90 to 95% probability that the photograph of the tall tramp arrested in connection with the president's killing and Charles V. Harrelson arrested for the death of a federal judge were one and the same.
LOL.
Now that's amazing, isn't it? I would say that is closer.
It is closer. He's
But,
like, oh, you almost got me.
I'm
on
sure
that.
that
He's like,
here again, the person is probably in his 30s, and the brow ridge isn't the same here, but it does look it looks a lot more like me, I would say, this view than does the other.
It certainly does.
Are they the same person?
Are they?
Yeah.
I'm not.
Beg pardon?
Yes.
Beg pardon?
It's amazing. But no, I don't know the gentleman, and I never did know them. Everyone who was involved in that thing has been eliminated.
True.
Had I been involved in it, I would have been killed. Had I been approached to be involved in it, I would have laughed. Because it's obviously a case of immolation. You're going to destroy yourself by doing something like that, because the agency involved in carrying out this assassination cannot have someone with first-hand information regarding the assassination.
True
You know
that.
what? The country would destruct if that came forth.
Not wrong.
Also kept under wraps and not investigated.
They would not be wrong if they found out that one of the people who was involved in killing the President of the United States was also a future President of the United States. George H.W. Bush was in Dallas that day. He just doesn't remember where he was. He just doesn't quite remember. I'm not sure. Let's just check real quick. How did Woody Harrelson's dad die? Charles Harrelson death. Oh, yep, just random heart attack. I mean, 68's pretty old. But 2007? How do you think Woody and Matthew got frickin' True Detective, you guys? They're all feds. Everyone's an actor, everyone's a fed. I can't. Alright, boys, let's go last final push. We're cruising for a bruising now. Let's do it. Okay, this is a picture that someone found that they took, and look at that. Some people speculate. So during the assassination at the school book depository where Oswald did work, he was basically set up, is what the deal is. He was set up because he had intelligence ties and because the feds will literally sacrifice their own because you are nothing to them. They hate you. So look, I mean, you can think what you want, but this is the entrance of the school book depository, and that may or may not be Lee Harvey Oswald, not up at the 6th floor window. I don't know. It's just interesting, you know? But there's also a bunch of testimony from his coworkers who also worked at the school book depository who said that they saw him eating lunch, and he was definitely not up on the 6th floor. He was on the 2nd floor because they were eating lunch together or they saw him. So the FBI's story do not line up. All right, here's some other funny business. I think, remember when we heard that the dog was like, what's his name? Joe Brandon's dog was biting people? Yeah, it's because the Secret Service are all demons. Dude, this is nuts. So they all seem to be rats and snakes. The personal bodyguard of JFK was waved off. Look at this footage. Right when they left Love Field, which is in Dallas where they landed, his personal guy, the guy who rides on the back seat or the back step or whatever, this thing, he's waved off, told, you're not coming on this ride. And watch his reaction.
Everything seemed normal as the president's Secret Service bodyguards kept their ever-watchful eyes on the crowd. Everything seemed normal as the president's motorcade began its journey. Everything seemed normal That is, up until this instant. What took place is so odd that we're going to examine the scene 4 more times. Watch the left side of your screen. The arrow points to Agent in Charge, Amory Roberts, as he stands in the Secret Service follow-up car and motions with his hand. What he is doing is calling away the president's 2 most important bodyguards, the bodyguards whose job was to protect the president's back by riding on the bumper of the limousine throughout the motorcade. Watch again as he stands and orders the agents running at the rear of the president's car away. Watch the confusion inside the follow-up car that results. Now watch the right side of your screen. The arrow points to one of 2 agents whose job was to hop aboard the bumper and act as human shields. He's obviously perplexed. Watch as he shrugs his shoulders 3 times in dismay, each shrug more dramatic than the last.
The music's awesome.
As you watch this scene for the final time, ask yourself, is this the kind of conduct you would expect from an agency that routinely sends an advance team to a city a month or more prior to the president's arrival in order to make preparations?
Not this time.
Now ask yourself if the assassination could have taken place at all had those men been on the bumper during the motorcade. This is the rear of the presidential limousine. The back bumper is specially designed with a platform on both the right and left sides. There are also handrails on both sides of the trunk. This is where the agent should have been to provide the president even minimal security. The president, unaware of the treachery behind him and the danger waiting for him ahead, continued on to his death. You are about to see segments from 3 of at least 4 films shot in Dealey Plaza of the assassination. The 4th was confiscated by the...
Bro, it's nuts. It's pure insanity. Every step of the way, guys. It's every fucking step of the way.
The FBI.
I promise you, every step of the way. Dude, the driver even slows down. People are always telling me that the driver shoots JFK. I don't think that's what it is. I think it is a turkey shoot. It's just 3 angles, you know, they're all shooting at the center. It's like an ambush setup. But what the driver does do is look at this path. This would never, in a normal parade, would never happen. Causing this hairpin turn slows the car down, an open top limousine, down to like 8 miles an hour. Look at how sharp this turn is. Instead of just going down, this was changed apparently on the day. This is nuts. And then the school book depository is right here, right? Okay, so watch this. The driver literally slows down, bro. Watch this. And he's looking back. He looks back twice to wait to see that it happens. He's not looking back to shoot, I don't think. He's looking back twice. Here, let me go slow. That's what she said. Let's go half speed, Z's. Let's go big. Oh, daddy. This is what I'm talking about. Here we go. Okay, let's look at the perfectly, beautifully still spectators that are so elated to see JFK. Watch this. Oh. Bigger sign. Ooh. There's the umbrella guy. Okay. So, do you see the theory is that the footage is like where I have all of Dude, the footage is so much more than we have. Oh my god, this is so cropped. I can tell. It's so cropped, bro. Look at that. Nonsense. This is phooey. Goofball. These are goofball things. Okay, we're gonna watch. He's gonna turn around twice. Watch him. This guy up here. He's like, oh, did they get him yet? Oh. Like, if you hear a gunshot and you're the driver of a vehicle, you're not looking back to make sure that the guy is getting shot. You're putting the pedal to the metal, right? Come on. But this tunnel is, or up here on the train tracks, is where a suspected shot came from. And that would make sense, like, if, because there's that hole in the glass. So, I don't know, guys. I don't know, boyos. This is a nightmare. I don't think it's right that people who did a coup to our government should just get to, like, skate on this. You know what I mean? Like, George H.W. Bush became president after this. Oh. Okay. Dereliction of duty. They stayed out all night. They were out clubbing like it was the last day of work, you know. The, like, Secret Service guy just took charge over the police and told people to wash out the cars and everything. Oh yeah, they like stole JFK's body. It was supposed to stay in Dallas to be investigated by the local police. They stole it and they brought it back to DC. And the limo, they brought everything, they rebuilt it, they washed it out, they replaced the glass. They lost JFK's brain, what was left of it after the parade route. Look at this parade route, dog. Oh my goodness. Look at that. We didn't even look into this, bro. So what the flip really did happen, guys? What the flip happened?
So what really happened that day?
Yes.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
Please.
We have the epileptic seizure around 12:15 p.m., distracting the police, making it easier for the shooters to move into their places. The epileptic later vanished, never checking into the hospital. The A-team gets on the 6th floor of the depository. Now, they were refurbishing the floors in the depository that week, which allowed unknown workmen in and out of the building. They moved quickly into position, just minutes before the shooting. The second spotter on the radio talking.
Notice the walkies.
Has the best overall view. The God spot. B team. One rifleman and one spotter with the headset and access to the building moves into the low floor of the Daltex building. The third team, the C team, moves in behind the picket fence above the grassy knoll.
Yep.
Where the shooter and the spotter are first seen by the late Lee Bowers in the watchtower of the
That's our
radio.
boys.
They have the best position of all. Kennedy is close and on a flat, low trajectory. Part of this team is a coordinator who's flashed security credentials at several people chasing them out of the parking lot area. Probably 2 to 3 more men are down in the crowd on Elm.
Umbrella.
10 to 12 men, 3 teams, 3 shooters. The triangulation of fire Clay Shaw and David Ferry discussed 2 months before. They've walked the plaza. They know every inch. They've calibrated their sights. They've practiced on moving targets. They're ready. Kennedy's motorcade makes a turn from Maine onto Houston. It's gonna be a turkey shoot.
A turkey shoot.
They don't shoot him coming up Houston, which is the easiest shot for a single shooter in the book depository. They wait. They wait till he gets to the killing zone between 3 rifles. Kennedy makes a final turn from Houston onto Elm, slowing down to some 11 miles an hour. The shooters across Dealey Plaza tighten, taking their aim, waiting for the radio to say, green, green, or abort, abort.
Dude, Oliver Stone is so dope.
Sounding like a backfire, misses the car completely. Frame 161, Kennedy stops waving as he hears something. Conley's head turns slightly to the right. Frame 193, the second shot hits Kennedy in the throat from the front. Frame 225, the president emerging from behind the road sign. You can see that he's obviously been hit, raising his arms to his throat. The third shot, frame 232, hits Kennedy in the back, pulling him downward and forward. Conley, you will notice, shows no signs at all of being hit. He is visibly holding his Stetson, which is impossible if his wrist has been shattered. Conley is turning here now, frame 238. The fourth shot, it misses Kennedy and takes Conley in the back. This is the shot that proves there were two rifles. Conley yells out, "My God, they're going to kill us all." Somewhere around this time now, another shot that misses the car completely strikes James Pegg down by the underpass. The car breaks. The sixth and fatal shot, frame 313, takes Kennedy in the head from the front. This is the key shot. The president going back and to his left. Shot from the front and right. Totally inconsistent with the shot from the depository. Again, back and to the left. Back and to the left.
Back and to the left.
Back and to the left.
Not forward. Bro. They did this in broad daylight. This was, dude, this is so fucked up. They did this in broad daylight because they wanted to make an example of JFK. They did it in Dallas to say a message. It was a message. It was, if you fuck with oil, we will blow your head off in broad daylight and no one will do anything. If you mess with money, if you mess with the war boys, the war dogs, if you say you can't have nukes, we say use a hollow tip bullet so that his head explodes like a grapefruit. That's what they say. They say, oh, you want the civil rights movement to progress? You want everyone to chill? You want to pull out of Vietnam? You want to charge businesses tax? You want to let people fucking live? We're going to use a hollow tip bullet on your face, well, just the back of your head, in broad daylight with your wife and the governor of this state in the car. He even said, they're going to kill us all. That sounds like someone saying that they may have heard that someone might get killed at this. I don't know. Who knows? It's a weird thing to say. I don't know if I would say that. I would be like, oh, what's happening? But, yeah, dude. They made an example of JFK. Just like they like to make an example of homeless people. Because it is a threat to you. It says, shut your mouth. Shut up. Don't talk about this. Let us do our business extremism. You don't get to tell us that we don't get to do business extremism. But anyway, so people knew. I just wanted to pull up this stuff. This is a letter from the USSR just talking about what they think happened. They said, according to our source, officials of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union believed there was some well-organized conspiracy on the part of the ultra-right in the United States to effect a coup. They seemed convinced that the assassination was not the deed of one man, but that it arose out of a carefully planned campaign in which several people played a part. They felt that those elements interested in utilizing the assassination and playing in anti-communist sentiments on the United States would then utilize this act to stop negotiations with the Soviet Union, attack Cuba, and thereafter spread the war. As a result of these feelings, the Soviet Union immediately went to a state of national alert. The Soviet Union would have preferred to have had President Kennedy at the helm of the American government. He added that President Kennedy had to some degree a mutual understanding with the Soviet Union and had tried seriously to improve relations between the United States and Russia. Fedorenko also added that little or nothing was known by the Soviet government concerning President Lyndon Johnson. As a result, the Soviet government did not know what policies President Johnson would follow in the future regarding the Soviet Union. Ivanov's stated that it was his personal feeling that the assassination of President Kennedy had been planned by an organized group rather than being the act of one individual assassin. Anyway, I don't know. It's depressing. They just did it in broad daylight. No one's ever done anything. No one's gonna do anything. George H.W. Bush was probably severely involved. The body count is insane, dude. It's cuckoo, boo. Like, Oswald was not a communist. Not at all. It's literally like the Omar Mateen, Timothy Weisopel. It's like they get flipped and then they start running their mouth after Army being like, oh, I'm a communist. And then he tried to go to Russia. Look at this letter. This letter is Russia being like, this Oswald guy, he's an odd bird. He's cuckoo. We sent him away from Russia. And then he like slit his wrists or something to try and get out of getting deported back to America. I have no idea what's going on with that, bro. Lee Harvey wrote a letter to E. Howard Hunt, probably. He's a CIA bro. Here's that picture of him. The parade route. Motorcade was scheduled to stay on Main Street through Dealey Plaza without making a right turn onto Houston and then taking the deadly 120-degree left turn onto Elm Street. Police tomfoolery. Oswald sightings. Fake Oswald in Mexico. So many untimely deaths. Look at this. George Senator, on November 24th, 1963, shortly after Ruby had shot Oswald, were all dead. Just over a year later, Bill Huntley, a reporter for the Long Beach, California Press Telegram, was accidentally shot in a police station. April 23rd, 1964, Jim Cothey of the Dallas Times-Herald was incredibly enough killed by a karate chop to the throat on September 21st, 1964. Tom Howard, who was Ruby's first lawyer, died of a heart attack at only 48 on March 27, 1965. George Senator actually testified before the Warren Commission on the very day Hunter was shot, but claimed not to have remembered the November 24th meeting. Dorothy Kilgallen, well-known journalist and one of the regular panelists of the television game show What's My Line, was the only reporter to privately interview Jack Ruby. She supposedly told friends she was going to blow the case sky high. She vowed that story isn't going to die as long as there is a real reporter alive. Kilgallen also claimed to have been under surveillance. Kilgallen was found dead in her Manhattan brownstone. Death was attributed to an overdose of alcohol and barbiturates. Numerous unnatural deaths, yeah. David Ferry was a guy that... David Ferry was saying that he was going to get killed for talking to Jim Garrison, the New Orleans district attorney, and guess what? He shot himself in the head twice and wrote 2 suicide notes. There's a whole bunch of it's just all mischief. The whole thing is all mischief. It's so much mischief. Most of the evidence that was coming from Oswald was coming from a next door neighbor who was a motherfucking Fed. There's extra bullets, dude. They wouldn't let Oswald have legal representation. Oh my God, it's just like every single step of the way.
People have given me a hearing without legal representation or anything. Did you shoot the president? I didn't shoot anybody, no, sir. Get on there, boys.
Oh, God, we got to indoctrinate this guy.
Nobody has told me anything.
You have been.
Nobody said what?
Sir? You have been.
Nobody said what? Okay, we ain't here. Okay.
What did you do in Russia?
A policeman hit me.
A policeman hit him. Poor Lee. This is why you don't ever be a Fed. Never be a Fed. I'm a never Fed. Who's with me? Never Fedders. Never Fedders are growing stronger than ever.
in Dallas, the prime suspect still is being questioned. He is...
Anyway, this dude got screwed, dude. Screwed. Dude, look at some of this shit. It's incredible. It's just incredible. Like, look at these comparisons. They do tons of comparisons because there's a theory that there's two Oswalds, and I think it's kind of compelling. Like, maybe there's one in Russia, maybe there's one here, maybe they're using his, I don't know. I don't get it. But we know that the CIA is up to mischief. Nothing but mischief. Yeah, everyone started running up this hill as soon as the shot went out. Three photos show more than one Oswald. So they're just changing evidence. They're changing guns to fit their theory. Look, here's some different guns. Like, their story doesn't even make sense. There's no, like, Oswald could get a gun on the street. Why would he order one through the mail? It's so nuts. The puff of smoke is yeah, right up here. That's probably coming from the grassy knoll. Look at this. This is awesome. This is an outline of, this is the umbrella guy. Remember? They're standing here with where's the one with the umbrella? Here, he's standing here with his umbrella up, and then the other guy's waving frantically. It's probably a signal. There's a close-up of it. They had like a walkie-talkie too or something. Which is weird for 1963, I'd say. This is them. Probably George H.W. right there. That's Charles Harrison, right? Maybe. Yeah, look, there's the outline. That's awesome. See right here? Right here. Yeah, there's definitely drawing on top of the Zapruder film. I think they also cropped in. This is probably Woody Harrelson's dad. This is the guy that's Woody Harrelson's dad. I wish this was George H.W. Bush, though. This is E. Howard Hunt. This is the guy that frickin' Oswald was writing a letter to from prison that they burned. Look, this is that guy we watched the interview of. Tell me it's not. This is E. Howard Hunt. He was a CIA bitch. And then, I forget who this guy is. Goofball. Bro, that's the guy we were watching. For sure. For sure. For sure. That's him. These guys just think that they can pop off the president's head in broad daylight, use an explosive tip, and make an example of him, and that no one's ever going to say anything about it. Well, let's prove them wrong. Oh my God. So sick of this. Why do we let them get away with this? This is like Paul Weisopel times 2. Okay. Fuck these guys. Decapitated knitted anus out. Go spread the word. JFK was done bad. I hate these people. Alright, peace.